Welcome to Beyond the Stand with Metal Neck Outdoors. My name is Neal Blackburn.
Hey, and I'm Chris Blackburn.
And together, we dive into the heart of the outdoors, sharing thrilling hunting and fishing tales, reviewing the latest in gear innovations, and embracing the spirit of adventure. Join us as we journey from the depths of the forest to the vast expanse of the waterways. If you like the podcast, please feel free to subscribe. And also, guys, this podcast can be found on YouTube and most major podcast providers by searching for Metal Neck Outdoors or Beyond the Stand. With that being said, please join us and let's get to it. Well, hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Stand. This is going to be, I think, episode 4. Episode 4. And we brought on a guest today, Mr. Don Cicero. I just wanted to be sure I got that right. We've been going over that name since I've been here to be sure I got it right. And I come across Mr. Don's videos, I guess, maybe close to a year ago. And one of them that really stuck out to me was a hunt that you went to Okemugee. And
that seems to be getting a lot of hits.
A lot of hits.
Anything that has to do with public hunting land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've never hunted Okemugee, but we've heard a lot of good stuff about it. And but before I get started on that, I was wanting to get with you and say we appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate y'all having me on.
And we had actually crossed paths at the World Deer Expo, and I kind of got away from going to the Expo for many years because I felt like it really wasn't about hunting. It kind of got away from hunting. You had very few booths that actually represented the hunting industry, and it seemed like if somebody's trying to sell you a mattress or, you know, blah.
You want a foot massage?
Or a foot massage or a back massage.
Well, I have to agree on that. It kind of turned into a big flea market, but I've always tried to go to those events, and used to many years ago. I ran an organization called Alabama Christian Bow Hunters, and I knew most of the guys at the deer show.
Right.
I did that for about 5 years and turned it over to a guy named Darren Jarvis. He ran it after that. I think it's folded since then. I don't think it's still around much, but some of the older guys may remember going to them dot tournaments and 3D tournaments that we had. And it's a lot of fun, and it was fun going to them shows because I knew everybody. So now I'm just trying to, now that YouTube's come along and podcasts have started to get a little more popular, I've been going to these deer shows, shake hands, and meet some of the guys that I see on Facebook, like you guys, and Michael Perry, and Jacob Myers, and Andrew, and all these guys. You know, I could just go on and on and on with names of people that, and my intention is to just go out there and talk to them, shop a little bit. I bought a few things. I didn't go too crazy. My wife kind of keeps me in line on that, but it's fun.
Yeah, well, he did. He bought a new saddle. What's your thoughts on saddle hunting? I know you're a big stand hunter, and I was for years.
I got a couple of friends that's really trying to get me into saddle hunting. Back in the 80s, there's a gentleman in Georgia who came over and we hunted together here on some public, and he actually stayed at the house for about a week, and he tried to get me into saddle hunting, and I cannot wrap my head around having all that stuff right there in front of me.
Right.
I don't want nothing in front of me. I said, well, you can swing around a tree this way or that way. I can do that anyway on a lock-on. I got a safety harness. I swing 360 around a tree and get a shot with it.
Exactly.
So I don't feel like I need to change. I'm too old to change now. I'm set in my ways.
Right.
I got about 3 different systems that I use. I got a climbing system, a lock-on system, and a ground system, and they work for me. So I'm just going to stick to what I know. Try not to change anything. Make it simple.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason I did, the main reason is, and you probably know where I'm coming from with this, a lot of us were mobile before mobile became popular, especially back there in the 80s, you know. we were all buying the Lock-On brand stand. It was actually made by a company called Lock-On. It only weighed like 7.5 pounds because, you know, lighter was better back in those days. And I think I still got like 6 of those stands. But I went to the saddle because it's just a little bit lighter for me going deep into the forest and places like that I go. But I still hunt with a climber. I still hunt with a Lock-On, and I love to hunt off the ground. I've got a turkey lounger that I use, like when I go turkey hunting, that I actually carry with me for turkey hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, to me, it just adds a new element to it, to me, the saddle. Because there's sometimes, I'm a stand hunter, just kind of like sitting in the stand, but having the saddle to hunt out of, especially when we go deep in the forest and stuff like that, it's a little bit less to carry on me when you carry a meat pack, your backpack, camera gear, stuff like that. It's kind of nice to be able to have just a few pounds in your hand and you can pop up a tree real quick.
Yeah, we used to go into the woods and carry our, which I hunted out of Old Man's for a long time, and we'd go in a month in advance and tote them back in the woods and hide them behind a pine tree and cover it up with leaves. That way we didn't have to tote it as far.
Oh God, I remember where this is that morning.
Yeah, I've done a couple of Lock-Ons that way in the past, homemade Lock-Ons.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best tree stands I ever had was a homemade Lock-On tree stand that I made, and somebody stole it. So
Yeah, we had that happen too.
I hope they enjoyed it.
For real. Yeah, we had that happen. We were hunting in the forest, and there was I walked into my spot. I call it my spot. Well, nobody else hunted there, but
Right.
I'm on this ridge, and all of a sudden there's a four-wheeler sitting on my ridge, and you're not allowed to have ATVs in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, you know, I don't own the forest, but I think when we was walking in, we noticed there's a lot of blood.
Yeah, literally that morning walking in, it's like the first week of, it's Thanksgiving, deer season opened up on Saturday for gun, and there's a solid blood trail. You could trail it
We're
all the way into the woods. It's
we're-
like, good
we're
grief,
like,
what's going
somebody
on?
shot a deer here. Look at all this blood. Well, what it was a father and a son, poachers, and they were going in that week and shooting everything they could. There wasn't even doe days in the forest.
Mm.
And I'd confronted them that morning, you know, in a nice kind of way, like, hey guys, you know, you're not supposed to be driving this four-wheeler in here, it's, you know. And he said, well, we had to get our does out. Now, well, wait a minute, now, it's not doe days yet. You're not even supposed to be shooting does yet. Well, anyway, they go on out and we go home, and what was it? We come back the following year and put our stands back up, which a lot of people don't recommend you doing on public land, but we come in just a little bit early because it's such a long walk. And I brought it to those guys' attention, being nice, and like, you know, don't park your four-wheeler here. I'm not telling you what to do, but, you know, me and my son, we hunt off this ridge point right here. Mm-hmm. And, well, we put our stands up early the next year and come back open in the morning, and guess what? They're not there. But, you know, that's kind of my fault for leaving my stuff in the woods.
I don't have a lot of sympathy for people like that. If I catch them out there and I know they're trespassing, doing something they don't need to be doing, they're hunting illegal, I call a game warden on them in a heartbeat.
That's what I did. I got Mr. Green jeans on them. They got in trouble for their four-wheeler, and that's
he literally gave him a chance the first time. Hey, look, this is where we hunt. Don't be driving in here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what was it, like a couple days later, I'm sitting off that ridge point, right at daylight, you know how it is, and all of a sudden, parks, I'm talking about seeing distance from me, get off, and they walk off in the woods. I'm like, nah, I'm done with this.
So, I call the game warden in. They get a $500 ticket for riding an ATV on the forest property, and the next year, my stuff goes missing.
Yeah, I mean, if they know who you are and they know where you're hunting, and they got any way of being able to retaliate against you, I mean, you got to expect it.
Yeah.
Because they're out there hunting illegal to begin with.
Exactly.
They poaching. They disregard the law. So
Poacher's a
they
poacher.
ain't got no respect for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate it, but I mean, I think years ago you could really hunt wherever you wanted to. And I know back in my dad's day, in the early days, there's a lot of spotlighting going on, and people didn't really take it as serious back in those days. Like it was like $25 fine if you got caught.
Dang.
Didn't nobody really care. But they've gotten pretty strict with the game laws, and anybody that's out there trying to hunt illegal, do something sketchy, it's not worth it.
No,
I mean,
it's not.
you're in the end, you're the one that needs to be able to sleep with a good conscience, and I'm not going to do that.
That's the way we feel about it. What got you into the outdoors? Can you tell a little backstory on yourself about what?
Well, I grew up hunting and fishing with my dad. That's what got me into it. I guess the first deer I ever saw, I don't even remember how young I was, but I actually thought it was a dog. We were laying in a sleeping bag in the deer's bed area, and the deer come right through the thicket straight up in our face, and I tried to shoo it off. And then Dad, he throws his rifle up. As soon as the deer raised its head up, I saw that it had antlers on its head. I knew it wasn't a dog then, but I probably wasn't 4 or 5 years old, if I can remember, because the only way he'd keep me still was shove me down in a sleeping bag, and then I'd go to sleep. So he wake me up, he saw a deer. So he got me out there pretty early, and that's how we hunted, was just hunt off the ground.
Honestly, I prefer it that way. I love hunting off the ground.
Well, with a bow and arrow, trying to hunt deer off the ground, it's a little bit tougher. You can do it. I've killed a lot of deer off the ground, but when I try to hunt a mature buck, I find that it's a little bit easier for me to get closer to them if I'm in a tree stand.
Right.
They sometimes, you just can't get that close to them with a tree. There's no tree there, so you got no option but to hunt them from the ground. And I come, either last year or year before last, I come really close to shooting a nice buck with my bow from the ground. It's probably a 5-step shot. And me, with this recording, trying to get it on film, I looked up in the viewfinder and I saw the red light wasn't on. So I'm reaching up there, and that hesitation of trying to push the record button, he's gone.
What kind of camera do you use on your bow?
I got a little Canon Vixia series cameras is what I use, and it's got a little homemade bracket that I mount on the front of the bow. It goes around the riser like a Z bracket, and between the stabilizer, the boat goes through there. It keeps it from spinning around, and then I got a little quick disconnect. I think it's a Manfrotto brand name, and I just slide the camera in it, lock it in place, slide it off. Real easy, simple.
Is that really what attracted me to your videos? I'm like, this is raw. It's not over edited or anything like that.
No, I ain't smart enough to do all that.
I mean, I love your videos because it takes me back to being a kid, watching Noel Feather, Dan Fitzgerald, the old Roger Ragland videos, the stuff that you enjoyed, not this overproduced. No offense, Michael Waldell, but that kind of videos where we're going on high fence ranches, and you got Hollywood movie equipment out there filming every video you're doing. That's kind of what we did when we started. I wanted it to be us.
And a lot of your stuff it's older, right? I mean, how old is some of these videos?
I've got stuff that I ain't got on YouTube that's VHS.
Really?
Yeah, I got a lot of VHS stuff.
Well, hopefully you're going to get that out for us to see.
I got to figure out how to convert it. I tried. It's the aspect ratio is like a 16, 9/16 is wide angle. When you go to that VHS, it wants to narrow the aspect ratio down to a 4:9 or something.
Oh God! Yeah,
it gets a little bitty small square.
You try to blow it up, it gets real grainy.
Yeah, it gets real grainy. So I don't know if I'll ever do anything with it or not. Most of that stuff is just me in the woods filming deer, not self-filming hunts. And used to, the guys at work I'd put it on a VHS tape and we'd stick it in the player. They'd just sit there and loop through the day while we was at work. And they'd look at it, check it out, and they thought it was pretty cool. The reason I got to filming was Jerry Simmons. I was up there at his house one time getting one of those little woodpecker drills from him, and he had just come back from a duck hunt, and he had a big camera mounted on the front of his bow, and had somebody make a contraption where it set kind of low, and he was filming his hunts. So we sat in his living room, we was watching him shooting ducks with a bow and arrow. That's the coolest thing I ever seen. Self-filming your hunt with a bow and arrow. So I started trying to brainstorm and figure out how I could do it on my bow. When they come out with these little bitty cameras, man, that was it. That's all it took. I said, I can handle that.
Have you tried one of the Tacticams or anything yet?
No, I like the camcorder idea because you can zoom in and zoom out,
Right.
and you get better footage if you can zoom in. And that Canon camera that I use, I can leave it on auto all the time. So a lot of these cameras will one little old limb will blur everything out. Well,
Yeah.
that Canon's better. It doesn't do that. You can kind of stay on the one side or the other of a limb and zoom past it.
Right.
And even with autofocus, it works pretty well.
You know, talking about the focusing thing, watched a ton of your videos. Some of the shots you take, I'm there going, man, I'd never take them shots in my life, because a lot of it looks like it's just like there's nothing there to shoot through.
Well, that shows you how accurate it is.
I know.
No, well, you gotta realize the arrow's up here and the camera's down
Right.
here. So a lot of times that camera's getting a little bit different view than what I'm getting when I'm looking above it. But yeah, I do shoot through some pretty tight holes.
Some of that stuff you shoot through, I'm like, man, I don't know if I'd stand that 450 Bushmaster through that.
If you want to get a shot at them, sometimes you got to get in there where it's just that thick.
Am I right that you still use aluminum arrows, don't you?
I do a 2219 XX75s.
I used to shoot
That's what
2316s, I think, which was a lighter arrow because I used to shoot tournaments back in the 90s too,
Mm-hmm.
and had the old fast flight Hoyt bow, and now I've got a Matthews, and I'm shooting carbon arrows and mechanical broadhead. But to me, a mechanical broadhead was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. But that's me personally, because I could never get a bow tuned good enough to be able to shoot a broadhead like I did when I had aluminum arrows. Because aluminum arrows, I was shooting a Thunderhead 125, I think it was, and now I'm shooting the Schwackers and actually looking at some that's called the dead meat broadheads, and just rear deploy, and it's just the accuracy, I guess, is what gets me. And
If you tune a bow right, any broadhead is just as accurate, but
Yeah.
you got to tune them. And anybody out there, if you think you can just get by with not tuning a bow, you're fooling yourself, because a well-tuned bow is going to shoot better, no matter what broadhead you're shooting out of it. And you're going to get better penetration, because every little bit of fishtail or porpoising you get out of that arrow is taken away from that kinetic energy that you want to be there when it hits the deer. You want that kinetic energy. And aluminum arrows, when everybody started going to the overdraw and the short arrows and the fast arrows, I said, well, we're gonna speed these arrows up, and the deer can't jump the string on them. Deer are faster than them arrows. You're not going to beat that
even
reflex.
today's bows.
Even with 300 something feet per second, they say people say a deer cannot jump their string. I promise you they can. That speed of sound is just a lot faster than your bow, and a smaller deer is faster than a bigger deer. That's small kids are faster than us. We're getting old. We slow down. And you take a real big buck, mature buck, he might not flinch at all when you let go of that arrow. And I have shot under him expecting him to flinch, because I think I read the body language correct, and I believe they're nervous. So I'm going to try to shoot under the deer.
Yeah.
And I have shot literally under deer, waiting for them to drop into it, mostly does and young deer. But sometimes you don't aim where you want the arrow to hit. You want to aim where they're going to be when the arrow gets there. And reading body language, that's years of experience. I don't know any other way to get that.
Same way as you kind of like to be where the deer's going and not where he's been.
Yeah. I'm going to go to the deer to try to hunt them. I don't want the deer to come to me.
Yeah, that's my next question to you. If we're here, and the reason we started doing podcasts is to where we could learn from other people. You kill a lot of really nice deer. You're very good at deer hunting.
I've been doing it a long time.
And you've been doing it a long
all,
time.
all these didn't come in 1 year.
No, and I understand that. But there's something that is there something that you could tell somebody like us if you were going into either a piece of public property or a lease or something like that?
Something brand new to you.
Something brand new to you. What steps would you do to find a big deer, and what are you looking for, and how are you going to set up? Because I've noticed, I've been watching some of your videos where you're going deep into the thickets, the little pine thickets and stuff like that. And can you elaborate on what you would do? Like if you were trying to explain to me, hey, Neal, this is what you need to do to go hunt this piece of property. What are you looking for?
First thing I try to do is keep an open mind and not just, pinpoint one spot and just say, I'm going there. That's where they're at. Because I let the deer sign tell me where they're at. I'll e-scout like everybody else. I'll look for thickets, edges, a lot of diversity, water. I want food, water, and cover in close proximity to a general area so that I can, most of the time you get more deer in areas like that. And then I'll try to expand and look for the bigger deer sign from there. It might not be where you think it is. It might be closer to the road. You may walk past it. A lot of times I walk past it thinking, well, they're going to be way out there somewhere, where nobody's at. And then you get way out there and you find more deer sign out there, but you also find more hunter sign out there. These folks walk a long ways now. And you walk past and overlook spots. I never get that out of the equation. That's always in the back of my head. Is somebody overlooking this little corner right here next to the road? We went to some public land the year before last, me and my son-in-law, and it was early season, and the first thing we did is they plowed up all the fields, and we knew that they were planting the fields, so we went to their field, and we started looking for a big deer track. So I want to see a giant track. That's the first thing I want to see. And that fresh dirt, the deer are really attracted to it. So
for a newbie that's listening, what are you considering a big deer track?
Man, I want that thing. I want to be able to set my hand down inside that deer's track. I want it 4 finger wide.
4 finger wide.
If I can find it. Now, if it's depending on where you're at, some of the biggest tracks you'll find might not be 3 finger wide. That might be a huge track.
What kind of age deer are we talking about? Possibly 3 fingers, 4 finger?
Well,
just a guess.
You're looking at the heaviness of the track, the width of the track. I'm not talking about a splayed track. I'm talking
like
about
running or something, just
foot.
a walking track.
Yeah. And the biggest deer track I ever saw, I told y'all the biggest deer I ever saw in my life was at Wolf Creek Management Area. I know people ain't gonna believe it, but you could take your thumb and you could stretch out your pinky finger from the dew claw to the point of the hoof. That's how big that looked, like a heifer cow track. And it was a deer. And this deer, they estimate this deer be 400 pounds on the hoof. I don't know if nobody ever killed that deer, because Fletcher Johnson said it would have been a state record deer if anyone ever killed it. I laid eyes on it, and it was a freak of nature. The deer was so big it couldn't even run. I believe you could probably chase it down. And I shot at it and missed. Dad hunted it off and on. He knew where the deer was bedding, and this deer literally bedded right behind a guy's house in just a briar patch. He wasn't 100 yards off the road. Daddy could go in there. And not only that deer, but they were multiple bucks. We run 10 buck deer out of that little briar patch one morning alone. So when you find a really good overlooked spot like that, it can hold a lot of bucks. Not just, it can hold 4 or 5 or even 10. I've seen a lot of them hold as many as 4 or 5 bucks, and it not be a quarter acre in size,
Yeah, I know. I've hunted Wolf Creek several times back when I was younger. We actually, an uncle of mine back about probably 1985 had a little lease right next to it, and there wasn't a lot of deer on Wolf Creek, but when you found them, there were some big deer on Wolf Creek.
Yeah. And I'll walk the log roads. I'll go to the green fields. I'll go to the places that everybody else goes to, and I'll look for that big track. And that's what turns me on, is to see a big track. And then I'll go look for the big rubs, the big scrapes, the big tall licking branches like everybody else. And then I'll try to pinpoint how that deer's using that land to his advantage and where would he be bedded at what particular time of the year, because they don't bed in the same place all year long. They move constant. You got early season bedding, you got pre-rut bedding, you got primary bedding for a lot of deer, you know, where a lot of deer will bed, and then you got the rut bedding where they're trying to monitor and change their bedding, often hunting and searching for does. So if you can find all the main doe bed areas in a square mile, well, you got a really good chance of figuring out how that buck is going to travel from one doe bed area to the other doe bed area. In the rut, I'll hunt pinch points, funnels, and corridors, and any creek crossing I can find where the deer will cross when they're chasing. And they always want to try to chase down into a little draw. You know, so if you got a bunch of bedding up high, these bucks are skirting the edges, pushing these does. I always end up kind of pushing them down low. So I'll set up where they're going to be pushing the does during the rut. That's a whole different ball game. Early season, I try to get as close to what I think is their bedding, which is going to be in a shade, SMZ or a ridge top, where they call it thermals, I call it a draft, and them deer, it's cooler. Right. I think you can't really pinpoint exactly where that is in the woods. It's not always going to be like, you can't look at a map and say, this is where that draft's going to be, because it'll fool you. Now, sometimes you can pick a spot out, so like, this is going to create a good draft in this big holler or this draw. You got water, food water cover right there in close proximity, and it's cool, you got a lot of shade and thick. Well, you can expect a big buck maybe to be there. He might not be there at all, just because it's got everything that he needs. It might not have what he wants. He might not feel safe there. It might have a lot of hunting pressure, or I don't know what goes on in a deer's head, but when you find his spot, it's hard to really run him out of his spot. He's done figured out that that's where he's safe, and you can bump him. People are scared to bump him. I am too. I try not to bump them, but I have learned that the worst case scenario, you're probably going to run that deer off for a couple of weeks. He's going to be back. That's his home.
But in the process, you learned something, even though
I learned where he's at.
Exactly.
And not only that, when I blow a deer up like that, and I bump one out of there, and I know it's a big one, I'm going to tear that place apart. I'm going to figure out everything I can about that deer right then, because I've already bumped him. And it doesn't matter. You got timber cutters go in the woods. You got guys cruising timber. You got people going out there surveying. You got rabbit hunters, squirrel hunters, coon hunters. These deer are not, naive as to what humans are. And they smell human scent all the time. So get in there and find everything you can out, when you find that deer. And some guys, they'll just walk till they bump a deer. They won't even I won't hang a tree stand until I'm confident I'm in a good spot. I'll walk all day long with a tree stand on my back, up and down hills and hollers scouting until I find what I think I can set up on and kill a mature buck. And then that's where I set up. And sometimes I just hunt deer. I don't always hunt mature bucks. Sometimes I'll leave them alone. I'll say, well, I'm gonna wait for the timing to get right, 'Cause I know this buck. Like last year, I killed a buck late season. I knew that buck wasn't going to be there. I didn't know where the buck was at, but I knew where he was going to be late season. So when it got there late season, I went in there and I looked to see if his sign was in that little area. Is he going in that bed area? Is he there? He's going to leave sign if he's there. So I found his sign. I scouted that morning all around there, and I set up that afternoon in an area that I did not scent up, getting a little bit closer to him, because I already kind of know where he's at. So I'm scouting outer edges. And in that evening, I snuck in there right when the thermals start to fall and the wind starts to die down. Because I was in a bottom, and that wind kicks and whirls. So if you wait till that wind settles, I'm right off the edge of a little creek bank, and he come out just like clockwork.
Yeah, I've seen one of your videos where you were discussing that, where, and I kind of agree with you, where the thermals with that creek are flowing down, and I believe a lot of times your thermals are going with that creek.
Yeah, because thermals is not wind. People getting wind and thermals mixed up. Thermals is the air drop. You know, it cools down in the evenings and that air is starting to drop.
Right.
That means you got no wind. If you got wind, then you can hunt the wind and it'll override the thermals. That thermal is that little bit of air movement. If you ever get up early in the morning, I live on a lake. I know you guys can't see, but I can sit out here in the mornings and I can watch the fog lifting up off the water. Now, if it's warm all night long and it's hot days, you don't see that as much as you do when it starts to cool off, because that water temp doesn't cool off as much as the air temp. So the daytime, nighttime temperatures can make or break thermals being more or less. In other words, if it's a warm night and a warm morning, you might not have much of a thermal change, because the warm air is rising, cold air is sinking. And it takes a temperature change, a drop in temperature to make that happen. Well, I can sit here on this lake when it's real cool nights, and when the sun comes up and it hits that bank, the air is moving straight up. It ain't moving at all. It's just rising. When the sun hits that ridge over there, it literally pulls that air that direction. And you can watch. There's a little drainage right there, goes up into a hollow. And that's the first place every morning on this lake where you'll see the water ripple, because the wind's hitting it. And it's that thermal pull. It ain't wind. When the wind kicks up, it just dissipates and you don't see it no more. But you watch it real close, and it's only for about, I don't know, you might get 40 minutes worth of it out of it in the mornings. And late in the evenings, you'll see that same little ripple effect in that same spot. It'll be in the same area that evening, just be going a different direction.
Dang.
You just pay attention to it.
So your main thing is, so you're going to go on a new piece of property, you're going to look what you feel is the bed near the thicket. Start out on the outside edges of this thicket, looking for trails leading in and out of the thicket. Yeah. And the buck sign that you're looking for early season would be just basically, say like right now, if we were scouting right now, what would you be looking for? Even though it's hot, I mean, this is August, so it's hot.
Yes, I don't get in the woods this time of year. I just don't. I'm going to be going to Kentucky in September, and we're going to be hunting some early season, hopefully get some bucks in velvet up there. And up there, it's different. I mean, you got ag, so you got soybeans, stuff like that. But here in Alabama, you're going to have to look for a food source. This time of year, there's not a lot of food source out there. You got a lot of browse, you got pokeberries, you got all kinds of. I mean, it's really and truly there's food everywhere. I say there's not a lot of preferred food sources. So I would be looking closer to deer season. I want to try to find a preferred food source, because deer can eat anything.
Yeah,
they're browse, browse animals. So you want to be looking for I love crab apples. If I can find a crab apple tree, bucks love to feed on a crab apple tree if it's in the right location. Persimmons, if it's in the South Alabama, they seem to hit the persimmon trees pretty hard here. But up here in my area, they don't care nothing about persimmons. You hunt a persimmon tree up here and you'll just see coyotes. But if you can find muscadines dropping, I know one little spot on the club property that we hunt. There's 4 acres, it's pine thicket, huge pine thicket. Everything around is pine. There's 4 acorn trees that they didn't cut down on a little, like when they strip mine areas, they make these little humps. And,
we call them spoil piles.
Spoil piles, yeah. Well, they left some trees there on them spoil banks. And there's a couple of mature pine trees and stuff in there. And the muscadines, I've got 2 persimmon trees, muscadines hanging all over the place, and 4 acorn trees all within bow range of that one spot. There's nothing else around there. Just, yeah, it does. Even I can figure out that's a good spot to
Where are you
hunt.
hunting that right there?
Yeah, and when you look on the ground, it's covered up, leaves scruffed up. You know, there's deer droppings everywhere. It's fresh, old. You can tell that they've been in there, and they're still coming back to it.
Walk in there, neon signs pointing, hunt right here.
Hunt here, yeah, yeah. So that's a pretty obvious spot, and it's real thick everywhere around it. So I mean, a buck can slip up there no problem. The wind is really the only way I can get in there and get the wind right is I'm literally parking and walking from the road straight in, and I ain't going 75 yards to get to it. I'm going a beeline straight from where I don't park the car there. I walk down there to the road and I walk straight in. That way I don't leave any scent on any of the trails. I got to cross 2 trails, and the 2 trails I got to cross, I can get a bow shot too. Because they don't want to walk that close to the road. They walk a little bit inside near them spoil banks. And you'll be sitting there, and all of a sudden, because the spoil bank's like 3 humps, all of a sudden you'll just see a deer pop up and you're like, where did it come from? You didn't even hear it get there because it's all pine straw around it. So you got to be on your toes. They'll slip in there before you know it.
That makes me think of when you said about the persimmon tree. I had a buddy, he had a farm that he invited me to come hunt with him, and it had a little draw leading out of some hardwoods, and it was kind of thick on the other side. And the persimmon tree sat right in the edge of the field, maybe 40 well, I'm going to say 40 yards off the field. And it was an older persimmon tree. You don't hardly see them this big enough to get a stand in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was perched up that tree, and I heard something. I look over my shoulder, and it's getting right. It was getting almost not shooting light anymore. And here he come walking up out of that bottom following a doe. And they come right to that persimmon tree. And as soon as he crossed the persimmon tree, I was fixing to have about a 10-yard quartering away shot. Well, I reach up. You've probably seen the old Eliminator pendulum sights back in the day. You know, I had one on my bow, and I'm thinking, you know, reach up there, I'm going to turn that little light on because we didn't have the illuminated beads like everybody else. Then the little light had to shine down on them, you know. So I turned that little light on, and I could see the deer clean as day. But when I went to turn the light on, it didn't come on, so I couldn't see my beads. So I pull that bow back, and I'm sitting there like, oh my God. And I'm like, and I shouldn't have done it, but I just, where I thought that bee was going to be, I let her rip, but I missed him clean as day. But that was one of the sickest feelings, because he was a good 8-point coming to that persimmon tree.
We used to take white out and paint our little pins, you know, so we could see them late at night.
Yeah, because I hunted with the old ones too. All of them on a one string right there, and you probably had about 10 of them on there, even though the bows back then wouldn't shoot that far.
Yeah, and if there's a mistake that you can do, I've probably done it twice.
Same. Trust me, same.
Yeah.
I didn't get good at tracking for hitting them all really good well.
No.
I kind of want to go back to something that you said a while ago when you was talking about when you bump deer, then you take that opportunity just to bust it out and go ahead and do it. I have never thought of that. That is so smart.
You're already there.
You're already busting him. You're already there.
Yeah.
You might as well go ahead and investigate everything.
Yep.
Yeah, because a lot of times I would have probably just said, let's get out
Yeah,
of
I'd be
here.
like, crap, I messed this up.
Now I don't go straight to the bed. I don't want to see where the deer laid. If I jump the deer up, I know he's bedding there.
You want to know where he's going out at.
Yeah, I really don't want to walk over there and touch his bed where he was laying. I want to just walk around him. I want to let him get out of there. You know, make him think he got out of there without being seen or heard or whatever. Give him the benefit of the doubt.
And I guess you're hoping he'll repeat that again.
He will watch you while you're scouting. I've sat there and turned. I have literally turned around and looked up on a ridge and seen a deer stand there and watching me while I'm scouting. They're curious animals. Early season they ain't been pressured a lot, and even late season they're still curious enough. I tell you what I did one time. This how a little example of how curious animals can be. It was a doe, but it works. Probably not on a mature buck, but I jumped this doe right off the end of a point. I mean, I about stepped on this deer. I scared her about as much as she scared me. And she ran off the left side of the ridge. I literally took off running to the right side of the ridge. And I ran down there about 60, 70 yards. I got behind a bush, and I sat down and I got real quiet, like you do squirrel hunting. And then about 40 minutes later, I seen her ears popping up over the ridge like, where did he go? What was that? Why did he take off running? Her curiosity, and she got on my scent trail and she walked all the way up to the other side of that bush, and there only nothing but a bush between me and her. Of course, me being the, I don't know, sadistic kind of person I was back then, I jumped up that bush, and I thought it was funny. And then she turned inside out, or jumped 10 foot high. Taught her a lesson.
She hit the ground without a shot fired.
Yeah. Scared to death.
What kind of equipment do you use now? I mean, as far as what kind of bow you got, and you already told me what your arrow was. What kind of broadheads are you shooting?
I got a Matthews Healy, and I'm set at about 70 pounds, I think, 70, 74, somewhere in that neighborhood. I got a shoulder injury a few years ago, and I have to pull my bow a certain way,
Yeah.
which means I don't think I could do it in a saddle. That's another reason.
I'm kind of battling the same thing myself. I'm trying to work my shoulder out.
And I shoot aluminum arrows, XX75 Eastons, 2219, 29.5 draw. Last year I went to mechanical broadheads. I've always been against them.
Yeah.
I've always shot cut on contact 3-blade heads and tuned my bow to them.
Right.
I tried some 2-blade heads, some big heads. I heard people going to them, and I had a bad experience with them big 2-blade heads. I lost 3 deer all of a sudden, or had really bad blood trails. I tracked one 4 miles before I found it. A dog couldn't find it. I found it the next day. It's on one of them YouTube videos. I shot one 3 times through the chest and couldn't find the deer. And that was all. That year, I threw them things in the garbage. I said, I'll never use these again. I don't care how many people say this is the best broadhead in the world. But I threw them in the garbage.
Rage.
He had that kind of looking one.
I shoot the Rage Mechanicals now. And the reason I went to them is because I got a buddy in Kentucky. You'll see him on some of the videos, Mike Minton, and he shoots the Rages. He's been shooting them for years, and he's got a wall full of giant deer.
That's the blade I started out on, is the Rage. The first generation, I didn't have much luck with it. They still working out some kinks, I guess, back then, but I know the newer ones are great heads. I think the hypodermics is what a lot of people are shooting. And like I said, then I got into shooting the Schwackers and really like those because they actually cut twice. Actually, the first blade goes in, it's a 1-inch cut, then it opens up to a 2-inch cut. So I like those. And then, like I said, the dead meat broadheads. Those, I don't know if you ever looked into those, but those are a real nice broadhead because they basically slip backwards and you got a 3-blade cut on contact basically.
Well, my buddy talked me into them, and he says if you'll wait for that broadside shot, that deer is going down.
Yeah.
It's not an arrow that you would want to try to maybe take a shoulder out. And
Right.
I'm pretty hardcore. I've took a lot of shoulders out. I used to shoot 80-pound pull, and the Wasp broadheads, 3 blades. I used to shoot them. I've never had one of them not go all the way through a deer,
Yeah.
even through bone, and just take out a leg. But I shoot a heavy arrow. And I know these people, it's kind of funny, we was talking about arrows and stuff earlier. I can remember I was shooting the aluminum arrows many years ago, and everybody went to the overdraws, the light, faster arrows, and I actually saw some of them arrows just bouncing out of the targets, not even sticking into the targets.
Yeah, I can remember that too.
And my arrows were going through the targets and sticking in the wall behind it in plywood.
When they're hard to pull out,
And I'm hurt, so used to shoot at Pat's Archery when they were out in Gardendale. Pat went in there and he changed all the targets out because my arrows were shooting through his targets on the dot tournaments. And the other guys, they're literally bouncing out of these new targets that he put up. And it's come full circle. A lot of guys are starting to come back to the heavier set of arrows, getting that kinetic energy. Speed is great, but it don't do you a whole lot of good for that arrow to get there however many milliseconds faster than a other arrow would be, and it don't penetrate. I mean, what good is it if it ain't gonna do the job when it gets there? And I try to use the example of if you got a VW Volkswagen going 100 mile an hour and it hits a concrete wall, it's gonna go splat. You got a bus going 40 mile an hour, hit that same concrete wall, something gonna give.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not all about speed. I want my arrow to get in that deer deep, or I really want a pass-through shot, because that's what your ultimate goal is, to stick the ground on the other side.
Right.
You want two holes in that deer. And that rage, when one of them videos, the late season hunt, he and I are hunting together, and I videoed him shooting that deer. That deer died under my tree. He shot that deer between our trees, and we're only 15 yards apart from each other. And that deer went between us, and that deer died at the base of my tree. That's how far that deer went. I couldn't even keep up with it.
I watched that video, I think, the other day.
He put it down quick. That deer, and I've shot 2 deer with the rage so far, and both deer I've watched die. So it's got a good track record so far.
Right.
But I'm not going to endorse it or say or badmouth. You put any broadhead in the right spot, it should do the job.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell people. It's not ethical, but a field tip will get the job done if it's put in the right spot.
I wouldn't shoot one.
No, sir,
Wouldn't
not shoot
recommend
one,
that.
but if it was put in the right spot, it should be able to get the job done. But a lot of guys now, they're looking for the bigger heads. That way, it kind of gives some leeway, I guess, for a not so great shot.
Well, there's 3 things I want out of a broadhead. I want to be able to hit where I'm aiming. Accuracy.
Right.
I want that broadhead to be razor blade sharp. Used to, there was a broadhead, I won't name the name, but I would buy them straight out of the pack. Open the pack and I could rub my finger across the blade. That ain't gonna cut it.
No.
I want that broadhead just about cut me just looking at it.
Yeah.
I want it sharp. Shave hair sharp.
A lot of the mechanicals that I've laid my hands on, most of them like that are razor sharp. And the good thing is you change the blades out.
And used to I wanted durability because I'm kind of cheap. I wanted to be able to resharpen them over and over and reuse them. But if you're hunting a mature buck and you only get very few shots or opportunities at them deer, if it means destroying a broadhead, shooting through a mature buck and making the buck go down quick because I got a big cut, sharp blade, accuracy, I'll take that.
Exactly.
Same way I looked at it with turkey hunting. Back before, whenever these TSS first came out, I'm sitting there going, man, there ain't no way I'm sending $10 down the range. No way. And then nowadays I'm like, $10 is worth that turkey.
All the work I put into it, if I can make it happen, that's what I'm going to use.
Anything you can to make it a little bit easier on yourself.
Well, I will say that it's not smart shooting all them rage broadheads into hogs and just tearing the arrows up for no
I've
reason.
never killed a hog.
Use another broadhead for that. They're too expensive.
About how high do you like to hunt? Say, I'm picking your brain because the success that I've seen you have, and I'm like, and not to mention me learning something myself about how you do things, but also how many people that may be listening to this podcast that are young, that's just learning how to hunt.
Yeah, if I'm the height is not as important as getting a good concealment. I think that's probably one thing you need to look at. If you're in a pine tree, you ain't got a lot of cover, I'll try to get up at least to that first bottom limb and get my platform right there so that I've got, it seems like if a deer looks up, they might not look past that first limb a lot of times. And you want some back cover. Sometimes I'll sit next to a little small pine tree against you got a big pine tree and a little bitty small pine tree, and I'll sit right there and I'll get right behind that little pine tree or cedar tree or something. I've cut tops out of them so that when I stand up, I'm shooting over the top of it. Concealment. I don't care if you're 6 foot off the ground. I killed deer 6 foot off the ground. I killed them 25 foot off the ground.
Hunting the cover.
But you stay hid the best you can and sit still. It drives me crazy I might make some enemies here. I don't know.
Be all right.
But I like watching YouTube videos. I like watching you guys. Anyone local that does the kind of hunting that I like to do, I'm subscribing to them if I can find them. And when they're in that camera and they're sitting there and they're doing this and they're pointing over here and they're waving their arms, and man, I'm like, I want to just tie the arms up.
Be still.
Yeah, dude. If you're hunting in the right spot, you should be still. You know, don't be waving your arm.
Yeah.
You're not gonna see me on. Maybe after I kill the deer, you might see me wave around.
I was always taught, move your eyes first, then slowly move your head.
Move slow. When that deer comes in, you can get by with a lot of movement if you pay attention to what the deer's doing. If that deer's moving, you move with the deer slow, not sudden, no sudden movements. You move with the deer slowly. You can move because he's not going to catch that sudden movement because he's moving. It's hard for him to catch.
The trees, everything around him's moving.
There he is.
If you go draw the bow back, make sudden movements, if you can time it, you know, where he's behind a tree or a bush or something, and then he's walking, slowly draw. Don't jerk that bow back. That somehow or another, just they sense it. Even if they either hear it, they sense it, or they see it because they got side vision, and they're tuned to movement, catching that fast movement. So you want to be able to draw. If a deer is really close to you, you really need to be able to draw that bow back super slow.
Right.
Catch him with his head looking the other way. Anything that you can, and don't draw that. As soon as you see that deer coming, don't go ahead and draw your bow back right then and sit there and try to hold it. Because if you do, that buck's going to stop there somewhere before he gets to you, 9 times out of 10. And you're going to be sitting there holding a bow back.
I remember them days being young.
And
Here it comes.
Now you're going to have to drop it. Yeah. You ain't going to be able to make a good shot. Or you're going to have to drop your bow back down and then take a chance of getting busted. So I wait till I let them get within bow range most of the time before I ever try to draw that bow back.
Yeah, me watching some of the older videos when I was growing up and stuff, watching Dan Fitzgerald, you know, watching that stuff taught me how to practice. You know, I always try to point my bow, have my arrow already pointed at the deer, and just pull through. That way any movement's almost concealed behind your bow in a sense.
Yeah.
But and I even practice that way at home. My target practice just the same way. You know, I'm pointing at the dot I want to shoot, and not doing all this cranking and stuff that you see a lot of people doing because their poundage is more than they're capable of pulling back.
Yep, I'm getting there. I'm gonna probably have to drop mine down a little bit. My shoulder. I've been working my shoulder out trying to prolong it.
Yeah, I do some crossbow hunting. I don't know. That's probably. Have you ever got into crossbow or even tried crossbow hunting?
I've shot one. I took a buddy of mine. He'd never killed deer with a bow before. We practiced one afternoon in a backyard of his friend's house and put him out there on a deer. And you know, we were practicing at 20 and 30 yards, and now he's trying to shoot at a deer 50 yards away with a crossbow. And we didn't talk that through, I guess, enough. And he kept just shooting at this deer. This deer, I guess, just had a death wish, you know. But he cocked that
a little
bow.
higher.
Yeah, he cocked that bow, put another bolt in it, shot on the third time. He finally hit it, but he didn't kill the deer. He just
I don't
wounded
know
it.
how you could even get another bolt in it with a deer there. But yeah, I was always, like I said, because I shot tournaments and stuff in the 90s, you know, and I was anti-crossbow. I'm not going to lie. It's like, crossbows, you know, I love my bow. But then I got to where I picked one up and started shooting it, and I got a little more respect for it. And now I look at it as just another means to taking a deer, something else to give you excitement, in other words, you know. And there are situations to where I feel like it's better, and then sometimes I feel like a bow is better for a situation, especially if you miss a deer and trying to get a second shot on a crossbow. It's just about, not unless your buddy, how he done it, but not unless you know you're lucky. Other than that, if a deer sees you trying to get another bolt loaded in there and cranking or pulling, you know, he's gone.
He
you know,
pulled on it.
But yeah, it's just something that was exciting to me to try something different, and I actually got to where I enjoy it.
Well, I think people think a crossbow is just like a rifle. It ain't. It drops just like a bow. Maybe they're flatter shooting, a little bit faster. I don't know that you're going to have the kinetic energy in a crossbow that you would a compound bow. I wouldn't think they would be able to compare.
Something that's kind of helped me, even I noticed whenever I'm shooting my bow, I got to where I was having focusing problems. I'm legally blind in my right eye, so I have to shoot left-handed. I'm right-handed, but I've always shot left-handed. And I've noticed that my focus on the target was getting messed up. One, I'd be all of a sudden focusing where my arrow is going to go to the target, then all of a sudden it goes back to my bead and started messing me up. So the clarity of the scope helped me a lot be able to keep doing something that I really like to do.
Yeah, I don't have anything against crossbows. In fact, I don't have anything against any way of legal weapon to hunt. Now, I wish they'd bring the spear back to Alabama. You know, they'd be able to hunt deer with a spear. Because
I watched some cool YouTube videos on that stuff.
I would have loved to have been able to try. I built 2 spears, and I was practicing. I was getting ready, and I had one for hunting and one for practice, and I was getting pretty good at it. And then the next year, they just took it off. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Sure, ever see the video of the guy in Africa? He ends up dropping it on his leg.
That's Tim Wells.
Yeah. Wells.
Yeah, sitting at the base of his tree and they're bleeding out to death.
Yeah, he nearly killed himself.
Videoing himself and almost dying.
Yeah. It's a bad situation to be sitting there bleeding to death, knowing somebody ain't gonna come for several hours.
I know your channel's called I Bow Hunt Whitetails, but do you ever rifle hunt?
I grew up rifle hunting. I've killed 10 buck deer with a rifle. When I got in the military, I shot a lot.
By the way, thank you for your service.
Well,
yes.
Seriously.
You're welcome.
Thank you, buddy.
I appreciate it. I got shooting on. I actually got to shoot on the Air Force shooting team one time and compete against some other countries and stuff. And at that time, I won a foreign decoration. It's called a Schutzesnur. It's a German shooting medal. And at that time, I was only one of 500 soldiers to receive that. I'm sure there's a lot more. Me and my buddy, we both shot, and we both got one. So we were proud of that. And when I got out of the service, my dad was picking up the bow and arrow and starting to shoot with it. And he kind of got me turned on to it because, growing up, I had a recurve bow and 8 assorted arrows shooting at a bale of hay, and I thought I was good. So when he had that compound bow in the backyard and he was shooting at a Reese cup, the square.
And you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, the square box bottom of a Reese cup, he was putting it up there.
My dad's Robin Hood.
$5 a shot, boy. I said, yeah, you're not going to hit it. 20 yards? You ain't going to hit that? After about $25, I said, how are you? So I started getting real interested in, and I started shooting dot tournaments, and I've always been competitive by nature, I guess. And I've done a lot of dot tournaments, 3D tournaments, and now I just hunt. I ain't worried about trying to get trophies from a dot tournament or anything like that. I want to hunt these mature bucks, and it's a one-on-one challenge for me. I'm not out there to. There's a lot of folks out there kill a lot bigger deer than what I do. So I don't ever expect to be trying to make a name. I'm not naive enough to think I'm going to be some whitetail hunting guru that everybody looks up to.
Well, just don't forget about us little guys when you blow up.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about that for me.
Oh, you'll be surprised when people catch on to your videos. Yeah, when more people see it, your channel's going to really grow.
I get a lot of good comments from it.
Well, it's honest. That's honesty. I mean,
and what you see is what you get.
That's it, and that's what I get out of it. That's what it makes me think back, like Chris said earlier. To the older guys, the Dan Fitzgeralds, Noel Feathers, and stuff like that. It's just raw and it's deer hunting. a lot of, there's got to be too much competition in the deer hunting world, and I don't like that. I mean, I just enjoy deer hunting. I don't want to harp on somebody how they choose to do it, and I don't want them doing the same thing to me. I just enjoy going out there and harvesting an animal. It's fun, and then I take it home and I eat it.
I mean, that's why you do it. I mean,
exactly. That should be the only reason you do it.
Roger Ragland said one time, somebody asked him, why do you deer hunt? He said, because I like it.
That's it.
I don't know of a better answer than that right there.
There's not. I mean, that's the whole reason I do it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't go do it.
I've watched one of your videos, and I'm going to pick your brain on this. I want you to tell me the story behind it, because this one stuck out. Excuse me. Yeah, that one stuck out to me more than any of them. When you shot the hog in the eye.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a touchy situation. This hog was walking up on me, and he saw me, so he knew I was there, and he just kept getting closer and closer and closer. And I didn't know if this thing was going to try to charge me or not.
Going to you.
I got nowhere to run, really. So he's facing me dead on, and I'm waiting for him to turn sideways or something, give me a shot, and he never does. He just keeps walking straight at me.
I don't think if you wouldn't have shot him, he'd probably try to jump on you the way it looked in the video.
If the only place I could think, I knew if I shot him in the top of the head, I wasn't going to penetrate. It's going to bounce off that head and might make him mad. It might scare him off. I don't know, but I wasn't willing to take that chance. So I really settled on that eye socket. And I missed the eye.
Yeah.
You see, I missed the eye this much.
You had some penetration.
Everybody
left a blood trail.
Oh yeah, it was enormous amount of blood coming out of that hog. But everybody that knows me aggravated me about, you missed the eye. You know that, right? I go, yeah. Well, he got in there. He run off. The arrow was still stuck in his skull. He was run off. He made it 60 yards, and he piled up.
What do you think he probably weighed? It looked at least 300 to me when I was looking at the...
I'm guessing 400 plus.
Yeah, because it was a big hog. Was that private or was that public?
It's on a leased land that I'm hunting with, and there's a lot of hunting pressure on it. But this little area that these hogs are in, it's a thick. None of them guys want to go in there. I have to plow myself in there, cut me a trail, get down in the creek and walk the creek up in there, and then I get out on the creek bank and start hunting. It's a unique situation. The hills on both sides are wide open where they clear cut it. And down in that bottom of that SMZ is super trashy. A lot of blowdown trees in there. And that buck that I'm after, that's where he's utilizing that SMZ for a travel route. And I never have killed that deer. And I don't know if he's still alive. If he is, he's got to be getting really, really old by now. I doubt he's alive, but there's another one in there, in that same spot. This has grown up all the way around it. Everything outside of it is all trashy wood. So he doesn't have to use that SMZ anymore, because everything around it's all growed up, clear cut. He could travel a different route. I quit hunting that when it got to the point where I just couldn't get in there anymore and hunt it effectively. I just moved to another spot. I haven't hunted it probably since that hog. Well, I may have hunted it one more time since then. But yeah, I'll pack up. I'll give up on a spot. I might move 200 yards away and pick another spot that I think I can kill that same deer on, but that's not an effective place to hunt.
You ever use game cameras or anything like that, or?
I got 60 acres of land that I bought. I think I've had it 5 years now, and I have game cameras on it, and mostly for security purposes. But they're set up on some green fields. I have 3 green fields on it, so I got a camera on each green field. I got 2 mineral licks. I got cameras up on the mineral licks, and the rest of them are just set up on. I think I have 7 cameras total, maybe 8.
Yeah.
And one's pointing at gates. I have a decoy camera. Somebody stole it, so I put another decoy camera up. Just a piece of junk camera. And I'm glad they stole the junk one. They didn't see the the one above them, taking a picture of them stealing it. They didn't get that one.
Yeah, I've kind of peeled back from using cameras as much as I used to. I went from not using any at all and being so overwhelmed and excited for opening day, not knowing, signs there, there's deer there, and getting up there and hunting. And then you run cameras for a while and a spot doesn't pan out or whatever, and you just don't want to go sit on it because you're not seeing what you think should be there. So I've kind of peeled back on using them as much as I used to, because I wanted to get back to that feeling of when I was younger and I first got into bow hunting. I can remember hunting opening day. I didn't care what the weather was doing. It didn't matter. It could be pouring down rain. I can't tell you how many times I sat against a tree and sat there just feel water just running down my back because of the excitement of being there opening day. And if I'd probably had a camera on that spot, not seen a deer one, and never would have even hunted.
I've tried getting good pictures of deer that I knew I wanted to hunt, and I've gotten a lot of good pictures doing that. But I've also noticed that these bucks will notice that camera, and they'll skirt around that camera and start to avoid those cameras. And I got 2 cameras now that's the no-glow cameras, and the bucks do not seem to see that camera. I mean, I've yet to have a buck deer look at that camera. There's a doe, she knows it's there. I don't know how she knows it's there. None of the other deer recognize that camera, but that one doe, she'll spot it, and she's done got used to it. That's over on a mineral lick. And it's funny, I got 2 mineral licks on my property, and one part of the season, all the bucks will be on this mineral lick, early season. All the does will be on this mineral lick, and then they'll rotate. For some reason or other, later on, right before deer season starts, you'll see all the bucks on that mineral lick, and then you'll see the does on the other ones, like they're avoiding each other in that area when they're taking up 2 parts of my 60.
Yeah.
None of them live on my 60. They just travel through there.
And what a lot of people don't realize too is that camera's just pointed right there. What's going on here?
Yeah, I've got it pointed in such a way that it's at a diagonal and the bucks come up from the holler, and it's amazing. Even though there's a bunch of trees there, those cameras will trigger those bucks 40, 50 yards away sometimes, down in the woods. And if you ain't really looking, you don't know where they're coming up from, it's hard to spot them. I leave them on video mode. All those cameras I leave on video mode. The other ones on the roads and stuff, I do a 3 photo burst because they're just for security. I'll get a picture of every deer there just by leaving them on the roads and not having to push into the woods and setting them up on scrapes. Or I tried to get a buck deer on a bed one time. I knew where he was bedding, this big buck, and back when they had film cameras, and I got me one of them.
Still got one.
I climbed the tree above his bed, hung it on a limb straight down. As long as that camera was anywhere in that bed area, he would not bed there. I could take that camera out. 2 weeks later, he'd be there. I could go in there and jump it.
Them cameras was about that tall back then.
Yeah.
Open it up and lay that film across it, close it back up. Couldn't wait to get to Walgreens or somewhere to get them developed. Yeah.
And half of them be pictures of leaves.
Yeah, that's it. What's some of your most memorable hunts? I know I watched one the other day. It was when your son killed his biggest deer with a bow, if I'm not mistaken.
I got a lot of memories. That's why I did the YouTube channel.
Same with us. I mean, I know what you're fixing to say. That way, you could go back and watch them, because who knows? God forbid you lose your mind, or I lose my mind. At least I'll have something to watch, and my grandkids can watch it. Kids can watch it. See what Pop's doing, and that's the same reason we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my son growing up, got his first buck on film. My daughters shooting their deer, and my dad, he's passed on, so I've got footage of him that I can watch. Friends that I've met over the years, that some of them we've lost contact with, but we hunted together quite often when we lived close to each other. They move off, so a lot of memories on my YouTube channel, for me anyway.
Right.
Other people If you watch my YouTube channel, you'll see me with black hair starting out young, and you'll see that progressive old man show up at the end with a beard and white hair. None of them videos happened overnight. It's my life history. I've got well over 30 years worth of video. I started self-filming in 87, 88, 89. I started
And there wasn't a lot of people doing it back then at all.
No, and I used to take a full tripod camera and a VHS camera on a tripod, hook the legs in the tree stand, lean it forward, and film like that. That's how I do it.
Hey, I need somebody over the shoulder. Anybody want to go hunt with me, but not really hunt?
Yeah. Good luck finding I'm going to Indiana with a friend, and we're going to be hunting up there. And he and I already jokingly said, well, whoever shoots the first deer, the other one's got to film for the rest of the week.
That's something that I've never hunted out of state. And
I just started a few years ago, and I'm loving it.
And luckily, I've got a friend through the company that I work with. He's an engineer, and he lives in Colorado. And he's been hammering me, hey, sending me pictures. Come hunt mule deer with me. He lives back against a lot of private property that he has a lot of access to. And I mean, he's sending me pictures of 22-inch, 26-inch wide mule deer with his porch banister, where they're passing through his property. And he finally coaxed me into what I needed to do to be able to apply. And I finally got me a mule deer tag this year. And so I've got a hunt between October 26th and November 30th. So I can't tell you how excited I am to be able to go just hunt and do something totally different.
Mule deer are different than whitetails. Is that my phone?
I'm not sure.
I might have mine on put it on silent. That was mine.
You done yet?
I got one mule deer on the wall. I killed it in New Mexico when I was in the Air Force out there. For a long time, I went 4 years without even being able to hunt at all because of the deployments and stuff that I had going on constantly. I just couldn't stay in one spot long enough to ever get any hunting in. And when I was in New Mexico, they had a 2-day hunt, 5-day hunt, and a 7-day hunt. You could pick one, but you couldn't hunt all of them. Public land. I picked the 5-day hunt. I killed him on the first day. I scouted that buck off and on for months. There was 4 bucks in a group, and they was feeding. We'd go up there, me and my wife would go up there and glass them and watch them. And they was up in the mountains, Cloudcroft, New Mexico, Lincoln National Forest. It's where I killed it. And the first day, I was sitting in that deer. There was 2 bucks bedded together on one ridge, and the other 2 bucks, they split up, and the other one was about a half mile away, bedding on another ridge. So I picked the 2 biggest ones. He's not the biggest. There was a non-typical that I was after that would make that one look like a baby. I wished I could have killed it. But he come in by himself. I'm sitting in the deer's bed, day one. I let him get as close as he could possibly get, and I didn't see the big one with him. He was by himself. So I shot him. I said, bird in hands, better 2 than a push.
That's right.
I'm going to take him. I might not get another opportunity to ever hunt mule deer again. So he's not a bad mule deer, but by their standards, if you look at him, he doesn't look no bigger than the whitetails up there. When you look at the mount and the chest on it. But I'll show you a picture of it. When he ran into a log, and the whole front of his chest, it tore the hide off. So the taxidermist had to cut it and wrap him around and make it fit a smaller mold. But he weighed 325 field dressed. They big. Mule deers are a lot bigger than
whitetail. That's what that buddy of mine was telling me. He says, bring a big cooler.
Yeah, he's right.
Bring a big cooler.
And I was young and dumb back in, and I drug that deer out. 7 o'clock that morning, I was dragging that deer. At 4:30 that evening, I got him to a log road where I could get to him. So I drug him all day long.
At the end of the video and podcast, we'll show all this. There's some fine bucks you got on the wall there.
Yeah, that 2 of them are gun kills. The 2 in the center are gun. The mule deer and that whitetail there in the center, they're gun kills. And everything else in here's, well, that one over there is a gun kill. That's my first deer I ever killed when I was 10-year-old. I still got that mounted. Everything else in here's bow kill. So I've got three gun kills in here and the rest bow.
Everything besides the mule deer from here.
No, he's killed some in Kentucky, if I'm not mistaken.
There's three. I've killed 3 bucks in Kentucky. That in the center up there is Kentucky buck.
I remember that hunt.
Yeah, that was the first deer I killed in Kentucky. So I got some Kentucky bucks up there now.
Was that the one you had to shoot twice?
Yeah, yeah. I tell you what, I don't know what it is about them Kentucky bucks. They're hard to kill. I've been having terrible luck. The first one I shot, I had to track him down and put another arrow in him. The second one I shot, I put 3 arrows through that deer's chest, and I blood trailed that deer. It was enormous blood coming out of that. I don't know where that deer went. We think he might have gotten in a river and sunk.
Yeah, I remember on that video we were talking about there. Well, there's one in the boiler room. There's another one in the boiler room. There's another one.
I've never seen.
I was zooming in on the video, like, I mean, God,
look, if I didn't have it on video and somebody told me that, I'd call them a liar. There's no way you're going to put 3 arrows through a deer's chest and it still live or get away from you. Now, we blood trailed it that night. It was still on its feet several hours later. That's the craziest thing.
What about that bobcat right there? When did?
They're all bow kills. I've killed 7 bobcats with my bow. I've got a couple of them mounted, and then I've got a coyote. It's in the bedroom in there. I don't know if I'm gonna put it back up or not. It fell, busted the ear and face all up. It's kind of messed up.
You got a beautiful trophy room here. That's for sure. I love the wooden ceilings.
Yeah, this wooden ceiling we put in recent, and the flooring. I remodeled this. We used to have an in-home daycare for about 16 years, and kids destroyed it. So when she retired, right before I retired, I went in and remodeled this room. This is what I want. I've always wanted this room to look like this.
Yeah, congratulations on retirement. We all hope we get there.
Man, it's sweet. I ain't gonna lie. Maybe I'll get a little bit more hunt time in now.
A little bit more honeydews done.
Well, I've been busy. I've heard people say that when you retire, you're busier, and it's been that way for me.
Or you get the ones that says, yeah, you don't need to retire. You know, people usually don't live long, but I have hobbies. I got a lot of hunting I need to do and a lot of fishing I need to do. I'm behind.
Yeah, I got a list of 30 things on my honey to-do list, and I'll do 3 or 4 and add 5, so it never ends.
So how's the fishing on the lake?
Fishing's good. I actually manage this lake for the community. That's one of my duties. We have 9 lakes in this community. This is the best lake to fish on because I live on it. But there's some big ones in there. There's double-digit fish in there. They're hard to catch. They're not easy.
I see you got a couple of bass there, stripe and.
Yeah, the bass is a 6.5 pound bass I caught when I was a teenager. Had it mounted. This stripe I caught out of this lake right here on 4 pound test line. That's why I had it mounted. It was a story behind it.
Dang.
I said I'd never mount another bass unless it was 10 plus, and if I do, I'll probably measure it, girth measure it, take photos of it, and get a replica because they look better than a regular fish mount anyway.
Yeah, that's a hybrid there.
Yes, hybrid stripe. Somebody put them in the lake, and
yeah, normally you see them on the rivers and stuff like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Some people in a well-managed stock pond this one has a lot of shad in it, and they'll put hybrid in to kind of help maintain the shad population. But I use fertilizer to help maintain the shad population. What I mean by that is I can start early season. I get that spring spawn. I can boost it up. I give them plenty of food. Phytoplankton in the water. I can make more shad in the lake appear. It's a slow process. It's a 2 to 3 year plan. You can build it up, and then I can cut back in the fall and not have as much green water for them to, algae and stuff for them to eat, and knock that spawn back in the fall. You can actually, some people use rotenone to spot spray the schools and control them that way. Some people put stripe in their lake to control it. So
I'd rather put something there that I can catch and eat.
yeah, they eat a lot. And this lake here, we already have a problem with it. When we first started managing it, was too many spots. It's bass crowded.
Mm-hmm.
So the spots outcompete the largemouth for nesting and everything, and they'll overtake a small lake if you ain't careful. So one of my rules I tell everybody when they fish, I said, keep and kill every spotted bass you catch, put it in the frying pan. They're good eating, don't turn them loose. But some people, you just can't get them to keep a fish.
You don't eat largemouth or spots or smallmouth bass.
They
That's
should
the
be
holy grail of
protected.
fish.
We eat them here.
We
do
got
too.
so much crap on our YouTube video of ours because we did several how to skin different fish, and one of them was a smallmouth bass, and I'm talking about you thought we'd done broke the cardinal sin.
Some people love you for teaching them how to fillet it, but then you get all those uppity up guys that think you shouldn't take one out of the lake and eat it.
From starting this lake, finishing it to where it's at now, that's a whole nother podcast. I could talk for a long time on what we've done to this lake right here to get it in the shape that it's in and how bad it was when we started. I could talk an hour solid on that.
We may have to come back and revisit that then because we love fishing.
Well, we could do a fishing podcast on lake management. Scott Sharonis, Southeast Pond Management, he's the go-to man. If there's anything that I don't know, I can always call him. And everything I know about pond management is through him. I mean, he's the man to talk to.
You got anything you want to add to the podcast here?
Hey, I doubt you'll get him on a podcast, but you could try.
Well, we'll get you. You're the knowledge guy about it, so
I'll talk about him.
there you go. There you go. Anything you want to add to this one?
I was trying to think of anything else. Really enjoyed it. It's been fun.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciate y'all coming down and visiting. We got some supper cooked for you guys, and hopefully y'all can fill your bellies up before you go back home. I know it's a long drive for y'all.
Make me feel bad. Thank you very much.
We enjoy your company.
We love the fellowship. But
Hey, one thing I love, talking about deer and fish.
Same. I ain't gonna lie, last week, was it last week or two? It was a couple weeks ago. We was at the World Deer Expo. You come walking by, so I'm like, I think it's him. Because I've watched so many of your videos. Now you're like a YouTube star. And I was like, hey, that's him.
I'm trying to hold on to the grandbaby that's running around.
I'm like, hey, look.
There's Don. I'm like,
Yeah.
who, what?
And there's so many people in there. It's like, oh man, you're bumping elbows all the way through that thing.
What we started doing, which I hate to give all this information out to people, is when we hit the door, we go to the end. Then we turn around and work our way back.
Yeah, and you're working against the crowd sometimes, but by the time you get to the middle, most of it's done dwindled down.
Yeah. But the last portion that we had to fight our way through, so we get on the aisle, feeding back toward the door before we get out of there. That or we already know where we're going. I've done picked out locations. He wanted to go to the tethered booth, and then a lot of the guys and stuff that you got. Parker McDonald and all them. So we wanted to see those guys. So we stopped by and hung out at their booth for a while. And then Michael Perry was over and we hung out and talked to him for a few minutes, which he met us there at Parker's booth. And
yeah, I try to hit all of them. I had a friend at the Trees Inn booth. I didn't even know she worked with them. And we grew up together. So I'm like total shock when I see her standing there. I'm like, she's selling products. Of course, I had to buy something from them.
Yeah.
You can't walk away from your best friend like that. Not buy something, but you never know who you're gonna see at them events. I'll run into a bunch of people. I take my son-in-laws with me. I took a friend of mine, Jed, with me this time, and we'll bump into people. He wanted to meet Jeremy, Aaron from Do It Yourself Hunter. And we stayed at his booth for a little while talking. And I spoke with them several times and just love Sandy to death. My wife and her really hit it off. I think they could probably be best friends.
Yeah.
But Jeremy's a nice guy. I call him Frog. He said only his good close friends call him Frog. I knew that from watching some of his. So I snuck up behind him, called him Frog. He slung that head around like, who called me Frog? Got his attention real quick. I think that's his nickname from his friends gave him years ago.
Mississippi boys.
Mississippi. Yeah. I've never hunted in Mississippi. I've hunted Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, North Carolina, Florida, but I don't think I've ever hunted Mississippi. Maybe one day I'll hunt Mississippi.
That's only close. Within spitting distance of it.
Yeah, yeah, one side of the river to the other. On top,
Mm-hmm.
I've been close to it. May as well say you in Mississippi. Some of them places.
Well, what goals do you have for this hunting season?
My goal?
Anything particular that you want to accomplish really hard?
Yeah, I want to get me a velvet buck in Kentucky in September. I got a trip planned up there with a friend, and we're going to get after him. He's already sending me cell cam pics of some of the bucks he's been seeing, and he got me pretty fired up about it. And
hopefully you can get one and get a video out of it where the rest of us can see it.
It'd be nice. I'd love it. He's got some really big deer on camera. I mean, for me, he was like, maybe he's a shooter, maybe not. I'm like, dude, that's an absolute shooter. Okay, don't even go there with me.
All day long.
Yeah, I'm worried about going up there and hunting with him because he's a little pickier than I am. You know, this is one buck state, so they really are pickier than we are. And I'm used to seeing 120s, thinking that's a big giant deer. And you go up there and a 2.5-year-old deer can bust 120 up there pretty easy. And you see 140s, 150s. The second day I hunted in Kentucky, I saw a booner. I about come out of my tree stand shaking. This thing was running straight to me across a soybean field. And there's nothing between me and this deer, and I'm only 10 foot off the ground. I'm pulling my bow up, getting ready to make a shot. And my bow got hung on a little piece of brush. I took my eyes off the deer for a second or two, get my bow up. I look up, deer's disappeared in a soybean field. How in the world do you disappear in a soybean field? I stared out there for an hour. I never saw the deer again. I got down, I went out there, there's a ditch in the middle of that soybean field that he took. He jumped off in that ditch. I don't know which way he went, left or right, but that's how he got away from me. He knew it was there.
Awesome.
Yeah, you got anything up?
I believe we'll wrap it up now. We appreciate the time that you've taken with us.
I've enjoyed it.
I have too. I really appreciate you coming in here, letting us come to your house, and I learned some stuff. You already got me going, okay, when I push that buck out of his bed next time, I'm going to check it out.
I might pick y'all's brain about some of this stuff here, maybe getting I don't know if I ever want to get real popular with YouTube or Facebook. I almost sometimes hate getting on it anymore. But
Well, anything we know, we'll share with you.
That was a good question. Have you got any hate yet on YouTube?
no, not really.
We get hate on one of our videos so much. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's the 450 Bushmaster video where he pulls down on a deer. We shoot left-handed, but the gun's right-handed, so it's just the only way we could do it. Well, if you bump it up just a little bit, squeeze the trigger, it clicks. He was literally just pointing out to people, hey, pay attention to this.
In the video, I'm trying to explain to people, I'm not ridiculing the gun or anything. All I'm basically doing is telling people, hey, if you're shooting this gun that's right-handed, left-handed, because a lot of us guys that shoot left-handed, we shoulder a gun left-handed.
So
and
the
bolt
bolt
sticks you in the back. So what had happened, I've got a Browning, and my Browning guns, if it's on safe, the bolt's locked, it won't pick up. Well, this Ruger, it's a kind of a bottom end gun, but with the safety on or off, the bolt will still lift up. But if you lift the bolt just a little bit, the gun won't fire. It'll misfire. The pin will just barely strike. And that's what happened in the video. So we do a video just explaining to people what happened.
Lily started out with a hunt. His buck comes walking up. He pulls the trigger, click. And then he goes into explain, I'm talking about everybody hates us for this video, how we're bad mouthing. That's the best gun I've ever done. I'm like, I use the gun to this day.
Yeah, it's an awesome
If I'm going
gun.
rifle hunting, the gun's in my hand.
I learned something through a mistake, and I was trying to explain to them where they didn't have the same mistake I did.
You ain't got enough rifle time or range time with this. I'm like, dude, it's just this happened here. Hey, pay attention to this.
If it can happen, it'll usually happen when you're out there in the woods trying to kill a deer or under a pinch. That's when usually things go bad.
It's probably got 200 comments and probably 150 of them are just people
It was on our
bashing
hunting
stuff.
lease too. The president of the club wanted to take it out because it was a pretty nice 6-point with no brow tines whatsoever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to shoot it. and it's just giving me a chest shot, and I can't tell you how many times I've shot one at the chest and taken it home, you know.
Well, my dad raised me to shoot them in the neck with a rifle. Drop them in their tracks. Don't have to. Now, when I shot that deer there, I didn't want to. I knew I wanted to mount it, so I didn't shoot it in the neck. I could have shot that. It was a 40-yard shot with a 243 Remington. I could have easily shot it in the neck, but I wanted to shoot it through the lungs, and it went 70 yards because I shot it through the lungs. But I was 15 years old when I shot that deer, and I was probably not supposed to be, but I was kind of hunting by myself on public.
Same way.
But Dad trusted me. I was raised in the woods, and I think the only time I've never been lost in the woods. Let's get that clear. I've been severely turned around, okay? But Okmulgee Manchmare's got some swamps in there that I got turned around in one night. It got dark on me. I knew where I was at, but I couldn't get back across the water. So I just kept walking. I walked a long ways before I hit another road. And I was probably 2 miles away from where I came in on the other side.
Me getting severely turned around on a coon hunt one night is what got me a GPS unit when my wife was pregnant.
Oh my God. I can remember being young and he having a pager back when pagers was the big thing.
Yeah, scare the mess out of me.
There's nothing I can do.
And I'm like, and she's close to being able to deliver, and I'm like, oh my God, is she ready to go to the hospital, or what's going on? And I think it was 6 more hours before we ever made it out there to where we could contact
It got
her.
so bad, we literally went, I think it was me, him, a cousin of mine, laid beside a stop sign with the dog and fell asleep when our other cousin went and walked to where the truck was.
When we finally made it out.
I've slept in the woods a couple of nights, but it's just because I wanted to. One time, me and a buddy of mine, we went so deep in the woods, we thought we was going to be so many miles away from anything. There, put us a little old tent up out there. We're going to sleep. We're going to hunt from there. We woke up the next day. There was traffic going up there. Good now.
Talk about getting in there with them.
I walked so far I got back to him.
Yeah. We like to froze to death that night too. We didn't carry enough clothes. It was fun times. Those are the best memories you asked earlier. Those are always good memories.
Brings me back to the first time we tried to do a camping video. We decided we're going to sleep on the ground. No, that don't work anymore.
Can't do that no more. I'm too old for sleeping on the ground.
I'm too old for that. Me and my wife, we live backpacking. We enjoy it, but we haven't been in several years. There's nothing more fun to me than to get 14 to 17 miles deep in that Sipsey Wilderness area. Mm-hmm. Backpack in there, you by yourself.
Yeah.
You know. And we don't do it as much anymore. So we're shaking our head no.
All right, well let's
end it. I could probably sit here and talk to him all day long.
We'll save it for another day.
We'll keep talking, but y'all guys, y'all appreciate y'all.
All right. Thanks guys for watching.
See y'all next time.